All right. Hi, hello. We are streaming live on the internet. I should be audible. I should have captions. We should, hopefully, have people at some point coming in deciding that they want to watch. That'd be cool. All right. Basically, so assuming we have all that, I should also add one last thing, which is my face. Ah, there it is. Hi and hello. Welcome back to yet another edition of Lorelink Plays. Um, This week we are playing through the Call of Cthulhu. Thank you for the check. The Call of Cthulhu scenario module, Edge of Darkness. We're playing through Call of Cthulhu because we haven't done that yet, and also it is thematic, basically appropriate for the month of February, as February is the. And you've got popcorn, good. February is this February in particular is the 95th anniversary of the Call of Cthulhu short story being published. It was published in Weird Tales. Hilariously enough, it was not the cover. The cover story was a story about a haunted table. Apparently, the Call of Cthulhu didn't rate over that. Well, test of time or something. In any case, so to go get the show on the road, because there's a lot of stuff we have to do, I'm going to go ahead and bring in all of the players. So this week we have Michael, 20, and Tony all playing characters as well. So, bring everyone up to speed. Whoop, I just lost my screen because I wiggled the mouse too much. How dare I? In any case, so, thanks for following. Momentary genius. So we are playing through this Call of Cthulhu scenario, Edge of Darkness. We are going to do a brief explanation here at the start of how Call of Cthulhu works, because while I have studied it and know how to run it and play it, the players have not played it yet, so we're going to give them a quick primer on how to run it and how to use it in Roll20. As a note, we are using the Roll20 starter set module that they provided, which means, as you can see off on the right, if you're looking at the stream, it has provided a lot of the handouts and the maps and the other things. More importantly, basically for our stream purposes, the directly below my image is the GM screen that I am using, which is the tool Lorelink, which is what this channel is essentially based around. Lorelink is a GM screen tool, which I have taken the contents of the module and I've used our GM tool to break it up into into more navigable sections so that I can flip through it, get through it, basically look up things quickly, basically jump between events which are happening, characters who the characters are interacting with, locations that the characters are going to, as well as dealing with creatures or monsters that they might be encountering. So all of that is available for me down there, and you'll see me scrolling through that. Also of note, in the upper right corner, that way on the screen, is essentially the Discord chat. So when I am speaking, my name will be lit up. My name is Mr. Melquire on there. I will basically the note of basically we also have MR Dowden, Tony Jaxel, and 20, who are our players. So upper left of yes, thank you. And that basically, if you are following on this video later, just listening to the captions, hopefully that will give you an indication who is speaking, as sometimes the captions don't necessarily make it clear who is talking at any given point. A quick run through of what Call of Cthulhu is. Call of Cthulhu is based on the works of H.P. Lovecraft, who wrote essentially kind of kickstarted an entire genre idea of our world is under attack. It is always just on the edges of things that are unknowable, things which are undescribable, basically creeping in from the outside and entering into our world just at the edges. And if they ever fully break through, our world is doomed. But it is almost impossible to confront such things directly because of their huge, ineffable nature, you're unable to comprehend them fully. And as such, you can only kind of grasp the edges of it, which have kind of poked through. And so a unlucky, unfortunate, chosen, depending on how you want to feel about it, few investigators, is how the game usually calls player characters, um, have been tasked with defeating this great evil before it can fulfill whatever plan, scheme, or basically whatever evil it is currently up to. So, in terms of how this game is going to work, it is somewhat similar to basically in terms of how mechanics and how the game works. Just to describe how that works, basically, just quickly. On your character sheet, you will see essentially 3 columns. Let me actually pull up a character sheet, so the viewers at home can see what one looks like in the Roll20 system as well. I will grab Nevada Jones here. Oops. All right, so at the top, basically, you have role options. Go ahead and leave those on verbose. I will cover what those mean, what those cover in a second. But for the most part, verbose is what you're going to want to keep it on. Character, basically at the top of the sheet itself, you have fairly standard character name and other character information. But directly below that, in this stat block here, is essentially all of your stats. Yeah. All of your stats in terms of basically what in D&D would be your strength, dex, and basically intelligence, constitution, etc., etc. Below that, you've got a list of skills, combat, backstory, spells, possessions, and settings. Actually, before I do that, I will go back and deal with this column here: hit points, magic points, and sanity. Of the three, magic points is going to be the least useful for you to have to keep track of in 90% of this adventure. That magic points is if you have started to mess around with the unknowable, unseeable world, you may be able to interact with that and cast spells, but all of you are starting from a place of relatively low knowledge. So don't worry about that. Hit points are on the top, and much like in D&D, basically hit points are the amount of damage you could take before you fall over. You will note the fact that all of you have fairly low hit points, especially if you happen to glance at anything that does damage or anything like that. You will note the fact that you are, basically to use D&D terms, fairly squishy. That is because basically violence in Call of Cthulhu tends to be more realistic. If someone comes at you with a gun or a knife or something like that, you may be able to take a hit, maybe 2. 3 is asking for it, and a lot of times 4 or more is going to put you down on the ground. So do be aware of that when dealing with basically things attacking you or you attacking other things. Combat is not going to necessarily be the best option. Below that is a key mechanic for basically for Call of Cthulhu, which is sanity. All the things as I described are so completely beyond human ken and understanding that confronting them or dealing with them kind of starts to claw at the corners of your mind. All of you will start off fairly healthy and sane and fairly thinking you will have a reasonable grasp on the universe and the world and how it works. As things start to chip away with it, I will call for sanity rolls. You will go ahead and click on that sanity stat, and it will roll for you, as you can see. And it will basically, you are attempting to roll under the sanity number. So in this case, you have a 50-50 shot of making it. Fail, and you will likely lose sanity. Note the fact that as you lose sanity, it is harder to roll under it. So this is a self-destructive spiral. It is intended to be so. If you start messing around with things and having to make sanity checks, it's going to get harder and harder to keep a grip on your sanity. If you ever lose more than 5 in a single go, you have the possibility of going temporarily insane and picking up phobias, manias, and all sorts of other fun things. No, you should not expect to come out of this hole in any way. Call of Cthulhu adventures are legendary and renowned for character deaths, character maiming, character injury, character sanity loss. It'll be fine. Just fine. Yes, just hold on. So in addition, so that is sanity. Yes, Darkest Dungeons, and a lot of those games get their inspiration from the mechanics you have in these type of games. So that said, basically how that skill check work with sanity is a lot of how your skills themselves work as well. So if you look down below, if you click on skills, it will basically this row here is a tab section. So if you click skills, combat, backstory, spells, it'll click over and it'll show you those. Skills shows you all of your skills. Combat shows you all of your combat related skills, as well as any weapons or anything like that you have. Backstory is a little bit of information on basically on who you are. How skills work, if you have verbose clicked, basically selected up top, if you click on one of them, like Cthulhu Mythos, you will see it pop up. It will tell you basically it'll give you a roll, 14 versus whatever your skill is, 0. You'll see below it regular, hard, and extreme. Like basically you can see 20 when you clicked on that, you got an extreme success. So Cthulhu works on a system of just making the skills check is great. That's a regular success. If you're trying to do something hard, you have to roll under half your skill. So in the case of 45, you'd have to roll around, as it says here, 22. If you want an extreme success, like you're doing something under extreme duress or doing something incredibly challenging, you need to roll under extreme. So that is what those 3 mean. So that is essentially all you really need to know for a quick look at that. We'll describe combat when we get into it and injuries. Lower scores are better. Yes, you want to roll low. But you want skill numbers to be high, but you want to roll low. Basically, yes, Nevada Jones has failed to operate heavy machinery. Good start. And that's a dodge. Yep. So basically, when I call for a roll, you'll just come in here, you will just click on it, and that will give you we'll look at your success, and then we will move on from there. The only mechanics you really need to worry about are bonus and penalty. Bonus and penalties gives you additional dice to roll, much like advantage in D&D 5th edition. You're rolling multiple dice and you're taking the higher. If a penalty, you're rolling multiple dice and taking the lower. In this case, you're rolling the tens digit. So you'll roll 2 dice, and basically if you roll a 5 or a 6, that's either a 50 or a 60. The last thing is pushing. If you're in a situation where you fail a roll, you can choose to do what is known as pushing. That is basically, there are only certain circumstances basically where that is allowed. You can always ask. You may or may not basically have a chance to basically be able to do it. Basically, what it does is it basically lets you do it the second time. If you fail, however, on the pushed roll, things get worse. So let's say, for example, you're swimming and you fail a regular swim check or a hard swim check. You can choose to accept that failure, and maybe you splash around in the water, but you don't really get anywhere, and you don't get that deep into the river. You can, however, choose to push and roll again. But if you fail the second time, you might inhale water, you might end up starting to drown, etc., etc. So realize that basically pushing is a way to say, yes, this is important, I'm willing to take the risk. But there are basically you're agreeing to, okay, if I fail this, you could do something bad to me. Just letting you know. All right. So with that, yes, yes, yikes. So with that kind of brief explanation, let's go ahead and let's start with Michael and go ahead and introduce your character. And basically how you feel your character acts. Basically.
Hey, I'm Nevada Jones. You may have heard of me from some of my greatest hits, such as when I recovered the Lost Grail or the Ark of the Covenant. I'm sorry, now that was that other guy, my long lost brother. Anyway, I'm going to be snarky. I'm going to be fun. I'm going to lose my mind, and you might not even notice.
All right, 20. It's not that matters. How many Nazis have you punched?
All of them.
We're in the 1920s. There's got to be one or two running around somewhere.
I'm sorry, I'm still laughing about my long lost brother. Hello, I am Keiko. Where is that button? Backstory. There it is. I don't have any time for any tomfoolery because I'm a scientist. And given enough time, science can explain everything. Ghosts are not real. And there has to be a scientific explanation for things that people attribute to things like ghosts. So,
It could be aliens.
well, I mean, wait, what year does this take place in? Like the 20s?
Yes, we are in particular. It is the summer of 1923.
I mean, I suppose aliens are possible. Science hasn't ruled them out yet. Anyway, I don't mind getting dirty, and I'm not afraid.
All right. And last but not least, Tony, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Professor Wentworth Avebury. I am a language professor. Languages are the bee's knees as far as I'm concerned. I've also had a lifelong interest in myth and folklore. I like to believe in the supernatural, but I have yet to see any proof. So, there we go.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. So, all of you have been recently contacted by Rupert Merriweather, an aging man you have known for some time. Merriweather is unknown and seems not long for this world. He has asked you to meet him at St. Mary's Teaching Hospital in Arkham at 1 o'clock on Thursday. You haven't seen the man for quite some time, so this urgent summons appears to be quite important. Perhaps he has something to tell you before he dies. All of you will arrive at St. Mary's Teaching Hospital. You will make your way down basically the white walls and buzzing lights, fluorescent lights of a hallway, basically filled with only the silence of the silence of the room is only broken by the grieving, the grieving, the dying, or those who are attempting to minister to those. You kind of find yourselves all gathered. All right, I wondered if fluorescent lights would probably be off. But you make your way down the hallway, and you will all find yourselves gathered just outside of his door. Basically, you see the fact that two other visitors, basically are already in the room, who you kind of recognize. Basically, most of you kind of realize. No, you're fine. I need to be called out over basically inaccuracies in my 1920s. Basically, you will note the fact that there are two visitors here. A grieving widow, likely his wife of long years, Agnes, and an individual who can only be his son, a sneering weasel-like individual known as Bertram. You could just barely hear Merriweather kind of in rasping conversation with basically with them. Basically, as he sees you enter, he kind of says, yes, they've arrived. Oh, very good. And Agnes just kind of looks up and says, oh, are these friends of yours, dear Rupert? But Bertrand basically kind of sneers at it. Like, oh, they're most likely just vultures here to try to weasel into his good graces before he kicks off and try to get some part of what he's given, some part of his inheritance for themselves. We probably should just send them away. If they have something they want to say, they could say it at the funeral. Agnes is like, oh, Bertrand. Oh, basically, I wouldn't think that basically Maryland's like, Bertrand, you have no idea how wrong how wrong you are, as often you are. In any case, I feel that I need a few moments alone with these individuals, as I have a small matter to resolve with them. That a piece of my conscience that I need to clear before I can pass on. I've been told, basically, I know what the nuns have said, and basically the priests, and basically basically I may not agree that there is any salvation for me. I should at least make the attempt. Please, please. And with that, basically Bertrand basically appears ready to raise a stink or basically kind of throw his weight around and try to, but Agnes gently but firmly kind of drags him from the room. And within under a minute or so, you find yourself left alone with this very obviously dying man. It's not obvious what he has. He's got bandages, kind of wrapped around some areas which seem to be covering something that is leaking. Maybe they're open sores, maybe they are pustules or something else. It's hard to tell. He's very obviously, even though it is the middle of summer, basically in this room they are keeping it cool, but he is still obviously sweating. There are black lesions which are barely covered by sheets and bandages poking out, and it is very clear for basically no matter what that this man is not long for the world. Whatever it is he has is definitely getting Arkham is weird. Okay, basically, but it's very clear that he is basically not long for this world, and so he will very kind of carefully beckon you closer, and assuming that you all do gather, he'll kind of basically beckon you in. Basically, obviously, he's having difficulty, and will kind of cough out and be like, in my youth, this is, pardon me, I basically, please don't, basically, I know there will be questions and basically incongruities. I'm very glad that all of you have come here. Basically, Keiko, basically the foil and basically the arguments we have meant a lot to me over these years. Basically, the back and forth we've had over the existence or non-existence of things. I know you have oftentimes dismissed me for a fool, but I beg you to listen to this. Wentworth, basically, you may feel that you understand parts of this, and some things may become clearer to you for some of the things I have asked you over the years. And of course, Dr. Jones, you have been my arms and legs when my arms and legs no longer allowed me to do as many of the things I needed, and ventured and explored the world. And we have talked many a times over things you have seen or saw. And in any case, in my youth, I and some fellow students, we were young. We were basically we were bored. We were So as youth did back then, you start to poke at the edges of things to see what is forbidden, to see what the adults are trying to keep from you. And so we got involved in, as many did at the time, in the occult. Basically, one of the older of us, a man named Marion Allen, said that he would basically said he knew some things, and basically led us through some silly things where we all kind of sat around and talked, and basically nothing much came of it. And so, but we got more and more serious and kind of wrapped up as you did, Basically, there was it came down to 6 of us who were really kind of into this. So we purchased an old farmhouse so that we could, go through a lot of get serious about it without having some passing neighbor coming by and freaking out over what we were doing and ruining our lives. But, so we basically we did a number of things. We had seances, we had psychic research. Nothing happened. No, nothing happened. Well, basically nothing happened until this last experiment. Something came. We called and something answered. But basically it came with such a force and it was terrifying, and even now, I can barely. I shudder to think about that day, and I'm embarrassed to be able to tell you the fact that when confronted with this evil, we fled. Those of us who still could fled, left the house, could not deal with that. Basically, we reasoned with ourselves that it was fine. Basically, that what we had done to bring it into the world would keep it confined there, and nothing would go wrong. But as we found out later, though, those wards that we had set up only last as long as we do. And I have kept track of my friends, and while we have become estranged because of those events, we at least knew of each other and kept in some contact, and I'm afraid that I am the last of them. And as you can see, I am not longer for this world. And I could not bring myself to go back there. I could not basically, now it is too late. So I find myself on my deathbed wanting to atone for this last thing, realizing that when I die, that magic will start to break down. Yes, I know, magic. I see that expression on your face, Keiko. Yes, magic. You will see more of these things, and there was more in your world than your precious science textbooks. In fact, he kind of thumps his bedside and kind of reaches over towards a bedside table and thumps the table, and you notice that there is a box. There, he's like, this box. Yes, basically in this box. Basically, they're basically all the aid that all the notes I've taken, all the aid I can offer you is in that box. See it through. I've called you 3 because you are the 3 most trustworthy friends that I have left. And I fear that if this is not done, that I cannot just do this for me. Please. Please. It kind of thumps the box some more. Anyone doing anything at this point?
How old does this box look?
The box itself looks fairly new.
Okay.
Keiko took out a notebook and has been taking notes this whole time. but missed the name of the old friend. The one that
Marion Allen was the leader of the group. MARION ALLEN.
thank you. And she asks, Mr. Merriweather, what is it that has you so ill?
It's, I have not lived. Basically, I am afraid that I have not lived a life that has been free of danger, and the things I have been basically messed with have taken a toll on this, taken a toll on this body. It may just be this a simple disease. Maybe it's just some lingering flu and some mutation or something like that. I'm sure you would think of that, but I feel this is something kind of penance for what I have.
You feel it's related.
I do. All of us have died in ways which seem a little too convenient. Typical black ooze flu.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
He will again thump the table near the box. Please take it. I beg of you. Take
I
the.
walk
Tell me you
over
will
and
take.
grab the box.
Take this on for me. All right.
I walk over and grab the box. Why not?
Okay. Basically, as you take up the box, basically, you can see he's kind of free. He's getting a little bit more frantic until you actually take the box, and he kind of relaxes at that moment, and that relaxing seems to be basically more of a surrender as he just suddenly just starts doubling up and coughing, and the coughing just gets worse and worse, and basically you will quickly note the fact that he is basically the rasp, basically he's doing now flecks of blood, basically like it's mixing with the spittle, and
Keiko runs to bring his family back in the room.
and before basically as you turn, basically he just kind of almost vomits up a gout of blood, which definitely is going to splatter
Expels us
you.
back.
It's going to catch you, Nevada. Wentworth, I don't know where you're standing. Keiko, you're starting to leave, so basically you can hear this starting to happen behind you. And it's like you couldn't believe that the old man had this much blood in him too, basically, as it were. But basically and I need all of you to give me sanity rolls.
Keiko also calls for medical staff, by the way.
Okay. Yep. We'll do our
We just
first.
click the sanity button, right?
Yep.
Oh yeah, this is starting well.
Sanity button? I don't see a sanity button.
It is on the right side of the stat block, 2 down below your hit points.
There it is. I was looking for a button. My bad.
Okay.
Yes. That's not good.
So the two people who viewed this makes sense. Basically, Keiko, you kind of turn back and you just see the results of it. And it's slightly less disturbing than it is to Wentworth and Nevada. As basically we could do this, basically he literally it's just like it goes from your typical someone is coughing a little bit of blood to this is an active vomit of basically bright red blood. And basically both of you will lose 1 point of sanity. You may need to go into edit mode to change that.
And so it begins.
But
Oops, nope, that just clicks the button.
I'm guessing that you'll have to toggle it to edit, change it to 49 or 59, and then toggle it back to toggle it out of edit.
Yep, got
Are
it.
they both going to 59, or is the first one or the second one?
You're just losing basically. This is the first one.
Okay, that's one. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
It goes out of basically, you're not subtracting from your maximum. You can get this back. It just takes time. There are rules for that, because of course there are. Keiko calling family members rush back in. Basically, the widow basically just kind of comes in and just kind of screams and goes slightly hysterical. Nurses and basically doctors quickly barge in as well. Basically, the room is quickly crowded with people who are basically ministering to him. Basically, at least basically one of the nurses is a nun who is ministering to the family. Basically, Bertrand is just up openly sneering at you and kind of staring at you, openly hostile. But basically, you are pretty quickly asked to leave. As they are basically attempting to keep him alive, and basically you are basically asked to leave by the nurses and kind of given dirty looks by Bertrand.
What is his deal? Jeez.
Believe me, I'm more than happy to leave and find the first opportunity for a shower.
Okay.
I have a clarifying question.
Mm-hmm.
Have our characters met before this experience?
It is possible that you are aware of each other. Like, basically, Keiko, you attend Arkham, while Wentworth is a professor at Arkham. Also badly mistaken. Dr. Jones probably has the same role as, to quote, as Indiana Jones, where he probably teaches the occasional class before going out on digs and things like that. So
Got it.
I'm the professor the kids hope they don't get. Oh. Or was that my dad? Anyway.
Are you alive over there, Mark?
yeah, it's
Okay.
basically the problem with faking a cough is my throat is just irritated enough from the last week of allergies and things like that it's like, you want to fake it? No, how about we make it real? Like, no.
Got it.
Okay, so you get cleaned up. Basically, you were offered services to clean up and things like that. And so you find yourselves essentially back out on the street holding this box.
Well, shall we go somewhere and look at what's in it?
Yeah, sure.
I believe we
I
should.
think there's a bar just down the street.
I could use a drink.
Especially
After this, I
that.
could use two.
Okay, so by basically reconvening at a nearby bar.
Wait, hang on.
Hmm?
Is this the America that had prohibition? Do we need to worry about that?
Actually, it's a coffee shop.
Oh, got it. Quote, coffee shop.
It is likely that definitely Nevada, if not Whitworth, knows of several speakeasies in the area.
Yeah, that really wasn't going to be an issue, but okay.
Okay, I'm just checking.
But
Irish coffee and Scotch coffee.
They have all the flavors of coffee.
Flavors.
In any case, so you were tired, so basically you find yourself sitting around the table staring at this box. Who's going to open it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It has
as soon as I have my drink.
Is it just cardboard or?
It's a metal box. It's a fairly standard metal box. It has it's not locked. It just has kind of a latch.
Okay.
Flip the latch and pop it open.
Okay. Inside, you will find several things. Recently, basically the thing on top is a letter, which appears to have been written recently. It kind of stands out as it is definitely the most recent item in the box compared to everything else. It is very definitely new. There is a yellowing envelope, which has the word deed written on the outside. And basically it seems some faded lettering basically seems to say something about Ross's Corner. And there seems to be paperwork. There seems to be some papers inside. There is a key inside that envelope as well. There is a slim journal bound in leather. And of course, most mysteriously of all, there is a small sarcophagus-shaped gold box of ancient design.
Gold box?
Gold box. Sarcophagus-shaped gold box.
All right. Can I place the historical context of this box, like where in the world or when in the world it came from?
Give me a history or archaeology roll.
Well, it's an object. I'm gonna give you.
Yes, Dr. Jones, you would obviously place this as an Egyptian box. Given the hieroglyphics on the outside, you're going to place it as being from the Middle Kingdom. Basically, of the Middle Kingdom time period.
Got it. So this is from the Middle Kingdom, I should think. Egyptian. Any latch or obvious opening on this sarcophagus?
It looks like it lifts off.
Curious, like that it's shaped like a sarcophagus. I wonder if it is a sarcophagus. It would be something very small inside.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
What are its dimensions?
It is. Like the problem I have is the fact that I have an image of it, and the image of it makes it look huge, but I'm fairly certain it is not that large. Let me double check this.
Small hands.
I love cabbage.
Um, Come on, where is that? Lid comes off fairly easily.
Is it
Nice.
big enough to hold?
Since there is nothing inside, the size is relatively irrelevant. So I will show you the picture
Okay.
that they give me. Then you can make up your own determination over how large of a box this is.
So there's nothing inside it?
There is nothing inside
long.
of it. However, there are the basically, Dr. Jones, you will quickly note that the carvings on the insides of the lid are of a different nature of the carvings on the outside. The outside are very obviously hieroglyphics. Inside are not.
Okay, do I recognize the writings?
Nothing inside, basically nothing clicks in your mind.
Weird. I start staring at it. I've not seen anything like this. This is not, in fact, Egyptian hieroglyphics. It's something I don't recognize.
Give me an occult roll.
Look, Laura, that was my exact same thought as a player.
Scratches. Go ahead and give me an occult roll.
I am showing it to everyone else.
Professor Wentworth, you're a linguist. Do you recognize that?
That's what I was getting ready to ask. Does the professor recognize the language?
It is so. Give me a. Let's see here. Looking at your skill sheet. Go ahead and give me an occult roll, and then also give me a. we'll just call it Japanese is probably the closest we're going to get. So give me Japanese.
So if I don't have Japanese,
Oh no, that's Keiko. I'm looking at the wrong sheet. That's why. I'm like, wait, that doesn't look right at all. Give me a cult and then give me natural world as your other, basically as a secondary.
okay, I'm just looking for natural world real quick. There it is. Okay.
Okay, nothing on a cult. Nothing great on. Basically, as far as you can tell, basically you and Jones kind of stare at this for a while, and you kind of go through a list of languages going back and forth, and the closest you can get is that it is vaguely reminiscent. Some of the symbols you kind of piece out and kind of go, well, those are all Pacific Islander type. But
Well, this certainly is a type of language.
Yeah. But you don't basically it's like that character looks really close to, and so does that one. So there's enough in them there that you don't just basically not just coincidences. There is basically languages kind of look together. You're like, it looks Pacific Islander-ish.
Am I able to tell if the markings were part of the manufacture of the box or if they were very clearly added later?
Good question.
They are very clearly added later.
Okay.
And just to make sure, does Keiko recognize anything in the language?
Give me a cult.
Oh yeah. Yes.
So somehow, basically like you have had long conversations with Merriweather. And you remember the fact that one of your long arguments that you had was about a specific, basically, whether or not, basically, he being 1920s American, assumed that since you were from Japan, you're not, you're an American. But basically assumed the fact that meant that you knew all about every Pacific Island myth, etc., because all of you Pacific. And so you had a long
racism.
Yeah, 1920s. But in any case, he forced you to go into researching some of the stuff to dispute some of the things he was talking about. One of his wild claims was about this lost Pacific continent of Mu, M-U. And from what you have read, you have the things you had studied about this supposed lost continent. This language is very close to that language. You don't have enough to read it, really. But you are fairly certain that it is it is that language group.
Okay. Keiko shares this with everyone, obviously, and asks a clarifying question of Dr. Jones. Are you certain that this is authentic Egyptian and then it was altered later? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. This is an authentic Middle Egyptian artifact. The interior inscriptions were added at a later date.
Out of curiosity, can I understand what the outside hieroglyphs mean?
Give me a language Egyptian hieroglyphs roll. Okay.
Nice.
Finally. If I didn't get that, I was just going to go.
So basically, it's going to take a little bit of time. You're looking at it like you recognize key characters and things like that, and so you're not able to just go, "Oh yeah." So I recognize all of it. You're able to pull. Give it a couple of days. You could pull it. You could definitely sort out all of it. But what you are able to pull out, where it is basically just glancing at it, is, I believe it is. Double checking something. Oh, yeah, I forgot to include that section. Oops. Basically, you catch obviously Child of Thoth is in there. There's something about Seeker of Wisdom, Deliverer of something of the water, people, slaves, servants. Basically that's what you kind of catch just kind of quickly glancing at it.
The what of Thoth?
Child of Thoth.
Nice. Child of Thoth. Is it actually large enough to be a legitimate infant sarcophagus? It doesn't look that big. It'd be really small for that.
It would be really small for that.
If it's a foot long, it's long enough for
Yeah, technically.
like newborns. Like especially like a premature newborn or something. Gosh, that's dark.
Kids were smaller back then. Everyone was smaller.
Yeah.
Keiko, upon hearing the phrase "child of Thoth," will look to Dr. Jones and say, "I don't know much about Egyptian gods. You have any info for me?"
Yes, presumably.
Thoth is the god of
Thoth
moon.
was the god of the moon.
Yeah, moon,
Sacred text, mathematics,
yes.
Sciences, magic. Magic, interesting. Curious. Okay. As messenger, recorder of deities. He was the patron of scribes, master of knowledge. Your type of person, I think. Except for the magic thing,
I mean, sciences sounds familiar. Interesting that they put sciences and magic together, but of course they were well, not prehistoric, but they were early history humans, so they wouldn't have known that what they thought was magic was really just science.
And so Thoth was mostly depicted as an ibis bird, but sometimes as a baboon, which was used on this particular sarcophagus.
This one actually is in the form of the moon. So do you wish to look at anything else in the box?
But what else is other than that? That's it for the box. So I guess that was the obvious thing to look at. It might be time to go ahead and open up the envelope carefully without tearing it.
There was nothing else besides the items already mentioned?
Yes, yeah, basically there is the new letter that was on top of the box. There, on top of the contents of what was in the metal box, there was the letter, which obviously contains paper, and you're guessing a key, because it has the word deed and Ross's Corner written on it. There is a slim leather-bound journal, and there was the sarcophagus.
Yeah. So opening up the deed envelope and looking through those papers.
Keiko will open the letter.
Okay. Starting with the deed. The deed is for a property in Ross's Corner. Basically, is a village west of Arkham. It's a farm property on Boone Road near Ross's Corner, west of Arkham. It is indeed the deed for it, and there is a key inside, which you presume to be to said farmhouse.
You said west of Arkham?
Yes.
Thank you.
You were looking at the letter.
Yeah.
The letter. It is basically it is addressed from basically it is addressed to basically to dear friends. It is signed by Merriweather. And I will go ahead and assume that you will be sharing basically unless
Yeah.
you tell me otherwise, I am going to assume you're going to share with the rest of the group. So
Keiko will read it out loud.
So, in the years after the nightmarish events of that night in my youth, I have seen many strange things. Only now do I begin to grasp the truth of reality and the scope of what is happening in the world. I've tried, in my small way, to combat the horrors and make amends for my part in bringing one to our plane of existence. What I have left to offer, what riches and wealth I have, I will put to good use in dealing with these abominations. It is the very least this old coward could do. I could never make myself go back to that little farmhouse, and put those events to rights. I gravely feared that which my friends and I loosed on this countryside. Nothing of consequence has yet taken place, but with my death I fear the bonds will be broken, and the horror free to come and go as it pleased. Lives not yet already taken weigh heavily on my conscience. The method of delivering this thing out of this world is still in that accursed house. The translation made by Marion from the book De Vermis Mysteris. I was never strong enough to take on the task. I hope that you are. In ridding the world of this, perhaps you will save my soul for hell. For I fear that my deeds have not been enough to release me from this heavy burden. I do not expect your forgiveness for what I ask of you. Rupert Merriweather.
Does Keiko recognize the title De Vermis Mysteries?
Give me library use.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It is not in a section that you would normally go in. But yes, basically you have seen that name as a book in the occult section of the library. Basically the library being the Arkham library.
What language is that written in?
Looks like Latin to me, but I'm not the linguist.
I speak Latin.
Well, remember, I'm still taking a look at that casket because it's taking me a little bit to figure stuff out. So
Sure.
if you need me to look at something, get my attention.
Yes. Keiko will ask the good professor to have a quick look at this. Can you just verify for me? Is this Latin? De Vermis Mysteries?
Looking at it, you will confirm that is in fact a basically it sounds like a Latin title.
Curious, might be worth checking that out.
And of course, I get a failure.
Nah,
what it is.
I mean, yeah, you're aware of that as a Latin. You're aware that it is a Latin title.
Yes.
You are not basically what exactly that refers to in this particular play. Basically, in this particular case, basically what the book is, you are not familiar with. Mystery. Basically, it is Mysteries of the Worm. Like, you don't need a success on Latin. Basically, too high of a success. You don't need a success on Latin to translate that. But it is not something you have any awareness of in terms of being basically being a particular book.
Know the words,
Right.
don't have a frame of reference past there.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay.
And as a note, when I said occult section, I mean the restricted occult section.
Restricted. Good
Yes.
times. So do I know? I opened the envelope. There's a key and a deed.
Mm-hmm.
Do I know where the location of it's? I assume it's for the property, presumably the farmhouse that's referenced.
Yes.
Do I know where that is?
Ross's Corner, Boone Road.
Okay.
what about the leather journal? Keiko will give that a look.
Okay. The journal is a little bit more detailed. That's right. I didn't actually put the handouts in here because that is a lot of text, which is already in Roll20. Basically, it is bound in leather, held together by plain cords, obviously handmade. Quickly flipping through it, basically has entries that date between June 1876 and May 1881. Remember that the use of the year is 1920, I believe 3 is what I said. For those people who
Yeah,
back
June
page.
1876 to
May 1881. It is faded. Basically, but there is a lot of a lot of stuff in there. Basically, flipping through it, there is a lot of stuff which just reads. Today we went to the farmhouse. Tried to chant out that Marion swore he found in an old book he found in the corner of the library. I felt silly, but nothing happens, and so we all left. We all left and had a good laugh. Is basically just like a random page you kind of follow. Basically, kind of flick out of it. Basically, there's some stuff on, basically on activities. There's basically but you're just kind of flipping through it. It looks like a day-to-day journal of something, a group that is known as the Dark Brotherhood. Right, you do see the name. Basically, you see many names. You see Meriwether's. Basically, this Meriwether's name is written. Marion Allen's name is mentioned. Several others, like a Herald, you see occasionally. But it'll take you probably about 4 hours to sit down and read through all of it. The only things that are really of note, you could definitely basically when you flip to the end, there is a newspaper clipping that is attached that looks like this. Or rather, reads like this, because for some reason, I'm not exactly certain why they did not include the images for this. So you just get the text. Actually, no. 1 second. Let me. I may have what we need. 1 second.
no worries.
Nope. I believe that it is just that one. Nope. Go back. Adobe, why is your product so terrible?
Let me count the ways.
Well, there goes that partnership.
I mean, if they were to hire us, that would be better.
Edged.
It would run on
Okay.
Linux.
Right. That's what it is. Okay. Edit.
Ow.
Yep. And should have clips. There we go. This is the last entry in the journal.
Wow.
Marion Ellen just discovered that Marion Ellen is dead and has been dead for some months now. He was murdered in New Orleans this past August. Suspect that he spoke to the wrong sort of people about the things he has seen, and they killed him. The newspaper mentions the sarcophagus, so they may have been after the gold. About how heavy is the sarcophagus in terms of gold?
Again, given that we're kind of dealing with an object of indeterminate size,
Yeah,
the answer is yes. It is probably
pounds, but-
it is relatively weighty for its size. You would guess you would guess that it is basically, if it is not gold, it is basically some other metal coated in gold.
it wasn't uncommon for them to use gold leaf over lead, regardless. That would still be hefty. It contains some gold, but like it's worth more as an artifact than it is its raw gold value. That's weird. Okay, so the
Yeah,
three of
but
us.
bandits wouldn't know that.
That's fair. The three of us gone now. I must do something. I've already begun ancient history classes at university, so I believe I will try to research the problem at the farmhouse in that manner. Okay, it's a long way to go. Perhaps I will uncover an ancient secret of how to rid our world of that beast in my beast. What? What? Huh.
The body of
Foul
Marion
play.
Allen, late of Arkham, Massachusetts, was discovered early this morning near the Gulf and Panama docks. A victim of foul play, the man was identified by local witnesses who said that Mr. Allen had been seen in the locale the evening before. Although robbery was the apparent motive, the police report that the victim had gruesome marks carved into his forehead and his tongue had been cut out. Mr. Allen had reportedly gone to the police earlier this week, claiming that he was being followed and that he feared for his life. He said his shadowy pursuers were after an Egyptian artifact which he no longer possessed. And look here, it says, oh, these must be the death dates of all of Meriwether's compatriots.
Huh. And it's now, you said 1923?
Correct.
So,
Why would anyone carve gruesome marks into... If they were just bandits, would they bother carving a forehead? I can't think of a reason why someone would do that.
so it's 26 years since the first death.
Well, no, it was the third death.
Well, according to the list of names,
Marion Allen was third.
correct. Oh, I'm just saying that the present year, Rupert. There's 26 years between the first death and Rupert's demise.
Yes.
Presuming he is now deceased.
No. 26?
What is the month currently?
We will say it is July.
July of 1923. That would be 40. Well, I'll be 46 this year,
right.
so
Yeah,
it's
right.
46 years.
Right, it's 46. 46.
20 and I are
My
both
bad.
going, you are not mathing.
I am not mathing. No, you're
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, I was very confused. All right.
46 years, 4 months. Interesting. That's a long time for people to be after this thing. Like, weird.
When was the last? Do we have the date of the last entry before this one?
There's the entry prior to this one is dated May 1881.
Okay. Wait, the entry prior to this one is dated May 1881?
Yes, this is the last entry.
But 81 comes after 77.
Oh, this is oh, they screwed up the dates. Okay, cool. They're like,
I
well,
was
basically,
told there would be no math.
I'm still basically the adventure basically gives it as basically a final newspaper clipping dated by August 1882 is pasted next to the entry marking Marion Allen's grisly murder. This is not August 1882. It's August 1877. So the answer is it is
Nice.
August 18. Basically, you can see it is as it says at the top. The last entry is October 1877. I'm going to guess that when it says May 1881, it means May 1887. 1877.
Yep. Got it.
Okay. So we're going to say 1877 was the last time this journal was used. I mean,
Yes.
other than writing the death dates at the bottom of the page in different pens, because whatever pen was handy at the time, whatever ink was
Correct.
handy. Got it. Okay. This is confusing.
Okay.
Well,
I don't know where to go from here, but we can check out that book and review that. We could also go check out our new property, apparently.
I mean, yes, I think we need to go and, I think we need to go to the farmhouse. But what?
Right?
Like, did we just get?
If you wish to spend some time reading the journal, that will take you a couple of hours.
Yeah, let's
You are
read the
also
journal.
aware. You are also aware of the library. Basically where the book is. Basically where you believe that book is the Orange Library. Where the book that is mentioned is. There is also the farmhouse. Basically, also if the professor wants to spend more time researching the box, you could do that and get a full translation of the box lid.
I would figure that's what he's
inside.
been doing
Yeah,
this entire
sure.
time. So
Yeah, I think those are all great ideas. And we should probably
So-
eat something while we're here. Does this
Oh, of
place have a
course.
kitchen?
Undoubtedly, you can get something to eat.
Yeah.
So, Professor, what's your translation?
That was the stuff I gave you earlier was the translation that he got out of it.
Okay. Got it.
Basically, to get the full translation, he will have to spend more time.
Okay. So yeah, Keiko definitely reads the whole journal.
Okay. All right, so we will deal with that first. Keiko, you will start at the beginning of the journal and read all the way through it.
I'm afraid.
Anybody
player
who
is afraid.
anybody coming, if there is a reason why there is a quote referring to Call of Cthulhu, which is burn all the books. Basically, anybody walking by, watching you, kind of snacking on whatever, basically some biscuits, maybe some cookies, basically sipping on a cup of coffee. Basically, can hear you muttering and shaking your head, and basically kind of flipping back and writing notes, basically, and taking notes, and sees you. Basically, you're obviously in some kind of distress reading this book. I need you to give me basically roll basically /R 1d2. Okay.
We're flipping a coin.
Yep.
Yes, essentially. You lose 1 point of sanity.
Now
As
we're
you
all equal.
as you read, basically, as reading through this book pushes the limits of what you believe in reality. It starts off fairly light. It mostly refers to, as Rupert talked about, a group of friends who kind of got involved in pushing the line, wanting to get involved with the occult and playing around with it. And then that group of friends kind of got more and more serious about it, and so bought a farmhouse because they were getting dirty looks from people around town, and started digging deeper and trying to get deeper into it. And then so they started off calling themselves, yes, basically calling themselves the Dark Brotherhood. They hold their first meeting in late spring of 1876. Rupert Merriweather was the group's recording secretary. The members numbered 6. Basically, the names which are listed at the back of the book match the names of the 6 members that he records in the first official meeting of the group. June of 1876, Merriweather purchased a deserted farmhouse outside of Ross's quarters. You're fairly certain that is the basically representing themselves as a student literary fraternity. They cleaned and furnished the place. And then basically there are comments that Mary and Alan went around carving warding signs over all the wooden doors and windows. This is noted with very sarcastic derision by Merriweather, and there are several comments basically in meeting notes from that point forward referring to Marion's basically silly carvings. Jokes definitely made at his expense. There are lots of if you name it, there is if you name the weird occult thing they try to do, staring into crystal balls, playing with a Ouija board, basically throwing a busted throwing chicken bones onto the ground. Basically attempting to read the bones and see what the spirit, basically calling out the names of spirits and basically doing things like that. It mostly seems like they're not particularly, it doesn't seem particularly serious, or they were taking it particularly desperately. However, there reaches a set of notes which are much more Mary and Alan has acquired an artifact, purportedly Egyptian. It appears to be a small sarcophagus of gold. You don't have to write this down. I will give you this journal entry. I'm just reading it to you. Inside is a large piece of amber, which entraps a specimen of some unknown species of arthropod. Alan is very excited as the box corresponds to a description he found in the ordinary reference volumes in the university's Oren library. Alan says that in another book, the Verme Mystere, is an explanation of the powers of the box. The text says that the small animal trapped in animal is actually host to a bound jinn, a guide to the spirit world. Alan says the tome mentions that originally there were 4 such pieces of amber contained in the box. There were no mention what happened to the other 3. We are agreed on a date, and a date has been set to conduct a ceremony to summon the djinn, with Ellen DeSurgis will be friendly. We have chosen the night of Saturday, March 18th, the night before the new moon. That entry is dated February 27th, 1877.
Oh,
Kind of basically speeding things up. They go through the ceremony. They put pentagrams on the floor. Someone is a watcher who keeps an eye for malevolent spirits. Basically, others start chanting, throwing powder onto. They throw powder onto a fire. Basically, the fire starts burning green and brown. Basically, people start chanting something from the book. Basically, then the entry ends on March 19th. Basically, the entry ends with, I see a trail of smoke circling up for the piece of amber. Its surface seems to be bubbling and melting. Could this be? Have we finally achieved success? I can see a form. And then the entry ends. The next entry is dated the next day, March 20th, 1877. We have finished with our plans and have sworn to pact to never speak of what happened last night. We have satisfactorily explained the death of poor Robert, and in some manner the madness of Harold. The sheriff accepts the explanation of a carriage accident. We planned it well. Robert's neck was broken in the fall, we told him. Harold struck his head on the rock when the horse's leg broke and the carriage rolled. It was only that. For the rest of us, it would be forever changed by what we experienced last night. I will write down the true events so they are not lost completely. The thing formed in the center of the pentagram, shapeless and nearly invisible. Its terrible voice should have given us a clue, but we were so foolish. It spoke, and then Ellen cast that damned powder on the djinn, the dust of Ibn Ghazi, he calls it, and that's when we could see it clearly. Basically, the pen kind of shakes on that last one. Words cannot adequately describe this faceless thing with 1,000 maws. It roiled and bubbled, never fully revealing itself at any one time. So terrifying was its aspect, I was frozen in my place, my pen falling from nerveless fingers. Cecil and Alan seemed lifeless as myself, while a sharp cry issued from Crawford's mouth. Robert, however, rose to his feet, and before anyone could stop him, stepped forward as though to embrace our horrible guest. With its arms, or those appendages that seemed most like arms, it took hold of poor Robert and twisted his head around like he was a doll. The lifeless corpse was then thrown back into Harold's lap, and that's when that began that damnable shrieking. The shrieking that hasn't stopped since, even after we handed him over to the sheriff's men. We still had a chance, apparently. Ellen now believes that we had kept our wits. If we had kept our wits, we could have reversed the summoning and forced the creature back to wherever it came. But Crawford panicked and, mistakenly believing it would dispel the creature, reached forward and destroyed part of the pentagram, breaking the seal and ending its effectiveness. Released from that binding symbol, the thing, with a screech that could only be of unholy satisfaction, was ejected from the house, disappearing out the window as a roaring, screaming wind of boiling colors.
Well, no wonder I lost sanity reading this.
Basically, it goes on to talk about Marion finding what he thinks is a solution. He tends to seek out some occult scholars in New Orleans. And then there's another entry. We now believe the fact that it is inexorably bound to the house. Alan went back this morning to retrieve some of our belongings and store our ritual accoutrements. He said that he heard it bumping around in the attic over his head, cursing him all the while. He said that it told him it only has to wait us out. When we who are all dead, it will roam the earth freely, slaughtering and feasting. Thankfully, the warning signs caused by Allen's during better times that seem so long ago now, are apparently ineffective and bar the thing entry except into the attic of the farmhouse. I might be able to sleep a few hours tonight knowing it is bound to the attic and cannot harm anyone else. I am hopeful for the first time since we stupidly released it from the amber. If it told him the truth, then we have time to seek the answers. God be with you in your search, my friend.
Oh.
And then we found out that Marion died
in New Orleans
a few months later.
So that is what you get out of the journal.
Wow!
Nevada and Wentworth. what are basically you're going to the library?
Yeah, I think it makes sense for us to go to the library next. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what basically this is happening while you're sitting in the coffee shop reading, Keiko.
Yeah.
So what
right.
are you researching at the library?
I want to go check out the book.
I'm double checking stuff from that sarcophagus.
And then-
Hermes Mysteries, that book?
And by check out, I probably mean break into the restricted section, locate the book, and depart with it. But
He's faculty. He should be able to borrow the book.
yeah, but I don't necessarily want anybody to know that I'm borrowing it.
Mm.
Okay, give me another hieroglyphics. Wentworth. Okay, hard
That's better.
success. Nice. So basically, knowing exactly what books you read, you're able to quickly pull together the list of basically the proper reference guides. Sit down at the table with the box, and are able to quickly kind of go through it and figure out exactly what the all the basically all the hieroglyphics are translated as. And that gives you, did they actually give you a handout for that one? Yes. That gives you this translation. Seeker of Wisdom, Servant, Son. Basically, it's one of those hieroglyphs which could mean either of Yugur, Yoag, Setes, Deliverer of the People, which also can be used as slaves of the water, Bearer of the Spirits of Nar-Lo-Hotep, Child of Thoth, Seeker of Wisdom.
Okay, so I write that down in my notebook,
Okay.
and I
call.
go to look for Dr. Jones.
Okay. So, Dr. Jones is going to the library. Give me a library use check.
Oh no. Do I have that? Library use. Oh, I got that. Oh no.
Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned something about being able to try again and take the worser result on a failure.
You can push, which is a reroll with basically with worse consequences.
Push. Oh no.
So, Wentworth, you will find Dr. Jones wandering the shelves, completely and utterly lost, muttering to himself over the fact that while he was able to navigate the ruins of Ibn Thaw and basically the discoverer of the lost tomb of the kings of the kings of Junathar, he basically
Got lost in his own library once, huh?
you will actually give it a basically he got lost in his own library. Yep. And actually you will lose you will actually you get so desperate that you are basically trying to find people, basically trying to get through. You will actually end up taking a point of of hit point damage. Basically, as you essentially literally tire yourselves out running through, basically desperately trying to find stuff in this library. Wentworth, give me a library use roll.
Guys.
Books? What are books?
Push it.
What is alphabetical order? We don't know.
That's the
These
problem.
books
They're
are
looking
not
for
in
things in
alphabetical order.
It's
Don't
like,
you know
would-
the Dewey Decimal System?
I was going to mention that, but I don't know when the Dewey Decimal System was
I know.
invented.
But I still need to do the UHF reference.
Oh yes, you definitely need the UHF reference.
It existed, for the record.
Okay. So the best that you are the best that any of you are able to figure out. is that there is a building somewhere on this campus, which is the restricted collection. You can't basically when you finally arrive at the librarian's desk, that basically the librarian who would be basically has the catalog for the restricted collection, they are not present. And you're unable to get anyone to be able to tell you basically who could tell you that. The closest you get out of all of your wandering around is the fact that you do turn up a you do turn up a copy of basically about the box. Wentworth basically when you're going to return all the books that you took out, basically to translate the hieroglyphics, you discover essentially an ordinary reference volume, which is something that Keiko would be able to recognize as being mentioned in the journal later. And it has a description of the box, which basically it says little is known about the box, except although scholars believe it to be in the possession of the little-known Nofre-Ka, a would-be usurper of the Egyptian throne, who lived during the 3rd dynasty of ancient Egypt. The box was believed to have been given to Nofre-Ka by the gods, and was saying to contain a jinn that could be called to enact some form of service. The book states that the golden box was owned by Parkaby Andersons, a British noble family. However, it was stolen in 1871 and has not been seen since.
Okay, we'll definitely be putting that in the notebook.
As a note, at this point, Keiko, you will arrive and find these two gentlemen wandering around the library.
Yeah. Glad you're here.
I'm definitely feeling like a sap right now.
Mm-hmm. So, Keiko, do you find us and help us out? Pretty please.
Oh, I've been talking to you all, and of course I was muted. I was like, hi, what is wrong with you? When was the last time you drank any water? Neither of you look well.
I'm not well. Not well at all. Clearly not enough water.
Are we, can I safely lead them, like, now that I'm here and they don't have to figure out where to go?
Give me a library use roll.
Oh,
Can
dear
you
God.
figure out the arcane mysteries of the Arkham Library?
I mean, I was fine a few minutes ago.
Okay, so the young lady, basically not only does she know where things are, she also knows who to ask in order to find out information. A fact which, of course, neither of you two was ever going to do. And as such, you have decided the fact that she is able to give you two different things, in effect. One, get to the fact that basically she is actually able to turn up a book about the fabled civilization of Mu. Basically, which reconfirms that the carvings inside of the box are in fact of Muvian origin. Doesn't really give you any way of translating them, but does confirm that fact. The second is the fact that basically the Vermis Mysteries is in the restricted collection of the library. It is on a special list compiled by the head librarian, one Dr. Henry Armitage, whose provision is required if they wish to look at the tome.
Okay. I guess we have to get permission then.
Since both of you are employed by the university, I'm just curious whether you have any connection to Mr. Armitage?
Doesn't
Basically,
ring a bell.
you have heard of him, Jones. Basically, some of the stuff
Okay.
that basically you were asked to get for basically Merriweather ended up going to him or his office at least.
I see.
You've never actually met the man though. Basically Wentworth would be aware that he is another professor in the college, basically or in the university rather. Basically kind of derided as that kook.
That kook.
Yay.
Yikes.
It's not ideal. Not ideal. Yeah, no. I guess I will make the first pass at convincing him.
Does Keiko
First
know
track him down.
his reputation?
Um,
Well, I've definitely let you both know that he is
Mhm.
definitely a funny old bird.
It
Like,
sounds
'cause-
vaguely familiar. It's again, you're a science student, and he is
Exactly.
actively not.
So Keiko will just be quietly in trying to. She's okay. Look, you two. I have to admit something weird is going on here, but it could all just be a product of Merriweather's mind. I can't discount science, so I'm gonna let y'all do the talking, so I don't offend him.
That's fair. That's probably something a professor should. Professor to professor. That makes sense.
Mhm.
We'll go try to find this guy.
Okay.
Have
Hunting
a little
through
convo with him.
hunting through basically the maze which is academia's offices. You are able to eventually to find his offices. Um, he is basically it is very definitely your classic literary academia kind of historical type basically office where it is cluttered from floor to ceiling with bookshelves which contains varieties of books, artifacts, basically ranging from small pieces of rock, large pieces of rock. That might be a skull. That might be a dagger. Is that a stuffed bird, or is that just basically? Is that or you swore maybe it moved? Basically, there's
Yeah.
basically barely enough space for a clock on the wall. And basically there are technically seats which would be used for visitors, but they are instead just used as horizontal surfaces for more books. The room is not well maintained. You can tell the fact that that none of the college cleaning staff has entered this room in years, if not decades, and you're not certain that there isn't as thick of a layer of dust on some shelves as there is on the old man himself. He kind of just fixes you with a glare as you come knocking on his door. I don't recognize any of you as my students, and I certainly don't think that any of you are in my department. So, what?
Dr. Jones, sir.
Congrats.
Pleased to meet you.
Not
Hold out a hand.
likewise. He kind of looks at it for a bit.
I believe there's a book that I believe you have possession of that I would love the opportunity to read.
He kind of just stares at you. Do I look like a librarian? Does this look like the Orn Library?
How many books are in this room?
Have they changed the size on I changed the sign on my door again?
How many books are on the floor, stacked up on the floor in his
Yes.
office?
I mean, basically,
Yes.
you have seen small colleges with less libraries, less books in their library than this man has in his office.
Glance around. It does look a bit like a library in here, but regardless,
If it was
apparently
a
this
library,
book
it'd be better
requires your
organized.
permission. I tell him the name of the book finally. Tired of beating around the bush.
He just stares at you. Why do you want that book?
Doing a little research.
There isn't
I
doing a
recently-
little
I re-
research with that book.
We came upon some notes from recent history, and we're in the journal was an entry describing this book as part of the research they were doing. So we're
I
trying to
assure you that
retrace
no
some steps.
recent book references that volume.
Nevertheless, it was noted in this journal. I would like to read it to know what it contains.
Do you?
I am an archaeologist and historian myself. I do believe that it would be a reasonable expectation.
You are an archaeologist, you are a historian, you are aware of the fact that knowledge is power. And I can assure you that
Exactly.
the knowledge that is in that book is power that no one needs.
You've read it then.
No, I'm smarter than that.
Then can you describe the book to me? What does it contain? You seem very concerned about it all of a sudden.
It contains knowledge and understanding which is best not meddled with. There are more things in this world that can be confined to
Okay.
your archaeological dig sites.
I see. Um, so the nature of the contents of the book, I mean, we're just trying to understand. Some people apparently read the book and claim that really bad things started happening. So
No doubt. So, upon reading that bad things have happened to people who have read this book, your immediate thought is you wish to read the book.
I need to understand, obviously.
Why, obviously? This knowledge, obviously, and if I'm going to take a guess, probably drove some people insane. Maybe led to their deaths. You
Oh, it definitely
understand
led
that
to
this
their
knowledge
deaths.
is terrible and horrible and pushes the limits of men's sanity. And your thought is...
Didn't actually know that part, so thanks for filling in some gaps for us.
You're welcome. May it be a warning to you.
Very, very well. So apparently, this book was read in a specific place that we now have the keys to. So I guess we'll just go check out that place. If you won't let us read the book.
I do
What
not
if-
wish... Yes, go ahead.
What if I told you, sir, that someone used the book for ill, and we now have been tasked with putting that ill correct?
I would probably inform you, miss, that I doubt that basically compounding the evil by learning, well, basically by reading that book would not increase your chances. Again, I am not aware of what it is, basically what is in that book directly, as I am just aware of basically its general contents, but I am certain that even if you think it could put to right one particular problem which the book has caused, it would likely, you might be tempted to read another passage and thus unleash a different evil into the world. I sadly have no reason to trust you with that information.
Fair, fair, fair. No, no worries, no worries.
Should we show him the sarcophagus?
Fine, I'll pull it out. This item is apparently related to the contents of the book and the demise of the people involved. I was under the impression that this item, not the book, were the result of the cause of their demise.
He licks his lips somewhat nervously and kind of scoots a little bit back in his chair.
Yes?
So you're telling me that you think this item is responsible for several people's deaths?
Yeah.
You
I think-
brought it to
I
my
think-
office.
I think
You're
what was I think what was contained within it was responsible for deaths.
What you say it was contained with it?
Well, there's nothing in it right now. She lifts the lid.
He rubs his forehead. Well, there's certainly nothing in it now. You are correct. He kind of casts his eyes around the room, kind of focusing on. Basically, he kind of focuses briefly, oddly, on your faces, and then kind of into the corners of the room, and then back to you.
Yes, yes.
I'm trying to figure out what exactly you want. You want the book so that
I
you
want the book.
can learn
Study it to understand how to undo the damage that was
something.
done.
What
Can't
makes
cure
you
both
think
of
that
you
the
at
book?
once.
What makes you think that the book can undo the damage rather than just multiply it?
Well, we don't know one way or the other. You're not giving us any indication of what the book says. We just know it was referenced. We are working backward from this information we have.
We don't know what happened. There was some reference of a beast being released.
Well, actually, Keiko would have
He
shared the
flinches somewhat at
contents
the
of the
word
journal
beast.
with. Keiko would have shared the contents of the journal with the other two, so you do know what they say happened. The original Brotherhood.
Ah, fair, fair. Okay.
He does flinch at the word beast, but otherwise just kind of continues staring at the box and then staring, kind of basically looking around nervously.
Huh. Uh-huh. So your advice is for us to not read it. So do you have any suggestions on another line of inquiry?
Give me a either charm or persuade check. Oh, so basically any of you who are speaking with him.
Oops.
I'm just standing back looking over the shelves.
Charm.
Oh, I should have done persuade. Can I
You
do
can
that
go
instead?
ahead, go ahead and do persuade.
Nice. Well done. Well done. Yeah. I will not be pushing.
Persuade is definitely not your skill.
No.
Okay. He kind of stares at Keiko.
We're just seeking information.
That is the problem. There is information, as I have said, the information is the first step down a rickety staircase that descends into darkness, which is very often has missing steps and often just collapses out from underneath you. There is times that learning things is worse than not knowing things. You open your eyes and you peer into the darkness, and something stares back at you. But you say something has already been released.
That's what we are led to believe by our path thus far.
I will reiterate that I do not believe that reading the book would do you any good. However, give me a moment. He basically reaches down and kind of basically obviously starts pawing through basically opening a couple various drawers, flipping through file folders, shoving them back, flipping through some others. Basically gets over to goes to what appears to be a filing cabinet, which is buried in basically you barely recognized it. Basically shifts some things out of the way, and after a bit pulls out a folder and puts it onto the desk. You see that it has the words basically restricted list, restricted collection on it. And he flips through it, and you can see various basically what appears to be various different titles across the top. It appears to be written in some kind of cipher.
Oh, interesting.
But it's very definitely basically blocks of text with a title of each block. He seems to flip through, reaches what he seems to be looking for, and then stares at it for a bit, and then mutters a bit, and kind of closes his eyes and kind of ciphers. 1 second. It always takes me a little bit to translate these. Didn't make it easy on purpose. So the vermis mysterious appears to have to do with the summoning of spirits. Looks to it looks to basically detail summoning and binding certain spirits, repelling others, and items of that ilk. It goes into details on several such spirits. Looks like the person who I got this information wasn't particularly lucid, so I can't give you exact details on what is inside of it. I do have a note that from the librarians that when I got a hold of it, after learning of its existence, that the copy we have had been damaged in some way, and that some pages had been removed. Does that sound familiar?
Pages had been removed. Oh, curious. That is very intriguing.
They had been removed before I had gotten a hold of it and placed it in the restricted collection. So
who did you get it from?
It was in our library. I discovered that basically just in conversations with a individual, the existence of the book in general, then looked to see if we had copies in our library, and discovered that we did have one in our general circulation. It had not been checked out very often. I believe maybe only a couple of times, but apparently one of the people who checked it out returned it damaged. Maybe these are the people who you say have unleashed something into this world.
Does the name Harold sound familiar to you?
I know quite a few heralds. You're going to have to be particular.
Harold Copley?
No, does not ring a bell.
Okay. What about any of these names? She'll show him the list of names from the back of the journal.
Are you showing him the back of the journal, or are you just showing him the list?
She's covering the rest of the page.
Okay. She kind of glances at the where you're covering, and that's a grim list. Well, Merriweather is familiar. I believe he attends this very university. Perhaps you should speak to him about this book.
Who do you think sent us on this quest?
I don't know. You haven't told me.
Does he really miss the obvious reference there?
No, he obviously is just kind of being somewhat annoyed and basically sarcastic.
She'll give him the annoyed, sarcastic face right back.
Okay.
Did he say whether he recognizes anyone but Merriweather? He said just him?
Just Merriweather.
Okay. Well, she'll put the journal away.
He'll kind of glance at it and be like, be careful with, as I said, be careful with knowledge. If that belongs to those who have played with it, sometimes what they have played with leaks out. I myself have found myself regretting some of the conversations and information I have seen.
We did observe just a little bit of leakage from the professor before his demise.
He wasn't a professor.
Oh, what was his association with the university? Oh, he was a student. Yes,
He
yes,
attended.
that's right.
He was a student and basically essentially was a scholar. So
A scholar, correct.
known to the university. May have taught a couple of classes, but was not a tenured professor.
Yeah.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. Did he die as we left the room, or do we know?
It did not look given your admittedly probably not large understanding of medical science. That amount of blood in an individual of his condition was probably not going to end well. You would you would put his life basically. He was still alive he was still technically alive as you left the room, and they were attempting life-saving measures, but you would measure his lifespan in hours, if not minutes.
Got it. Okay. Anyway, go on.
He was leaking a lot of important things. Yes, he was. In any case, he kind of gives you a look and kind of dismisses you from your office, and I'm going to kind of speed things up a little bit, as it is 7 o'clock, and I know some people probably want to have dinner and get to other things.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
So where we will basically, essentially, you have all of this information. And I am sure you have basically already mentioned there is pretty much just one thing left to do at this point.
Let's go to the farm.
Just go to the farmhouse. And so that is where we will leave it for this time. You have investigated, you now know a little bit, just enough to be really kind of nervous about what has happened here. But at this point, it doesn't feel like anything further can be gained until you investigate that farmhouse.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Got
it. That is where we will leave it. Thank you all. Thank you all for playing, and thank you all who have been listening, whether the entire time or on and off throughout. If you wish to catch up if you missed parts of this, came in at various parts, and you want to be able to catch it, this will be available on video on demand on this channel for basically a week, and then after that point, it'll be available on our YouTube channel once I get it up. Basically, I have to go through and make sure the captions were working and record all of that. In general, though, basically, as a reminder, this is the Lore Link channel, and basically, if you're curious, if you're more interested in what we've talked about here, and you want to know more about what we're doing, basically, you can follow this very channel, and you'll be alerted to next time we play, whether we play this game again. I plan some, basically, we play something else, possibly Call of Cthulhu related, or if we basically plan out a different adventure. That's basically following us here will alert you to that. If you want to know more about LoreLink, which is the system of information you saw me scrolling through down below, basically you can check out that planning stream on the YouTube channel, which will be going up shortly. You can also see the other streams that we put up there. You can also learn about the product on our website. Basically, if you go to the Get Started link, that will tell you information about how you can sign up to receive information such as our newsletter, one of which just went out last week, which is how you can keep informed on our future plans, both streaming and in physical person. For example, LoreLink will be at Origins coming up in June. We'll be talking more about basically where you can meet us in person and possibly see this LoreLink application for yourself, and get to basically possibly play into some games that we might be running there. Basically, LoreLink is a GM tool. Basically, this adventure, as you can see, I pulled the parts of it out of the PDF and kind of organized it inside of basically LoreLink, so it's a little bit easier. As you can see down below right now, I have basically all the events which have happened during the sessions, basically all the events that could have happened during the session, and I can just mark off which ones they actually completed, and then I can copy them over to the next session so that I know what they've done if we pick this up again. I can easily figure out what they did and what the next steps are with some quick notes. Can we embiggen that screen? That would be a good idea. I can totally do that. 1 second. Whoop. Let me switch that to... nope, that's the wrong one. I want the other one. There we go. And I can make that bigger. And you can see the fact that basically I've got the associated events, and I have basically the research at the library, the deathbed confession, and the investigate the golden box all checked, while investigating the farmhouse has not been done yet. And so that can transfer over to the next session, and when I want to start it, I can easily look it up and flip through it. And basically find out information about that. I also have all the items and things like that, which have been running around this adventure listed as separate items in here. Some various creatures and other things are all separated out. In any case, basically, if you want to know more about that, basically, if you want to try it out, the software for yourself, and basically in the next couple, basically in the alpha, which is be running for a couple more weeks, we're probably going to be shutting the alpha down here soon as we make plans to move on to the next version of it as we kind of ramp into a early access beta style access, but more on that as time goes forwards. But if you want to know more about that, you can sign up for the newsletter or follow us on our stream. So all of that to say, a lot of information and things like that. But thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for playing. And we will catch you all next time. Good night.